It's been a while. It's hard to start this video without saying a lot of really cliched things that we're all feeling. I had to sit down and I was thinking about how I've only been creating the work that I've been paid to do for my clients. Because it takes up so much of my creative capacity, it hasn't left a lot of space for projects and stuff that I like to do and want to do just for the hell of it and just for the art and the creativity sake of it. And that's not a bad thing. I love creating art with my clients and getting to create art for and with them. But I do miss making art just for the sake of making art. I think it's a really crucial and important part of being an artist and continuing to hone in on your creative voice. So it got me thinking, what was I doing differently in those times of creative abundance where I felt like I was more open to my creativity and letting it just kind of like flow through me, and I was creating stuff that I was really proud of just for the sake of it. And I think on top of that, right now, it's already just so hard to find the time to be creative and make art that you want to make while we're also burnt out and tired from 2.5 years of a panini. And the climate crisis and the economy slowly collapsing around us. Not to mention all of the personal tribulations and challenges that we all are going through on an individual basis. So how the hell are you supposed to push past all of those barriers and make art? So I thought about it and I was like, okay, what can I change in my own life to kind of open up this creative process again? And then I was like, hey, I can share it with the internet because it's been a while. So that's what we're doing on today's video. I'm gonna get up off of the ground because this seemed like a cute idea. And I don't hate it, but I do want to not be on the floor. So let's go somewhere else. Okay, so what do you do when you are exhausted, you're burnt out, you're overbooked, or you're not overbooked, but you're just tired all of the time? And you just don't feel like the creative badass that you want to be. And you're fighting the urge to just be a potato and crawl into bed and make a little blanket fort and stay there all day instead of doing anything else. How do you fight that and make art? You don't. Be a potato. It's okay. I had this tip at the end of my list when I was writing this out to myself. It was tip 5, don't fight the ebb and the flow. Surrender to it. But I think it's important to recognize that we all go through these cycles, and especially now, I think we're way more prone to falling into the ebb instead of the flow, where we want to just be little potatoes in a potato sack and scroll on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram the whole day and just disassociate from the world. And that's okay. We don't need to guilt ourselves for feeling like we need to disassociate and take a break from the world and our brains. I think that as artists, business people, entrepreneurs, creatives, photographers, whoever you are watching this video, you clicked on it for a reason. You obviously have a creative part in your soul. And there's enough in the world telling us that we're not good enough, or trying to get us to be better or do this or do that, that our brains and our guilt that we put on ourselves doesn't need to add to that pile. Like, you don't need to put the pressure on yourself. You don't need to guilt yourself farther. So just try not to. When you're being a potato, just kind of recognize that sometimes a potate's got a potate. That's the quote from the video. That is going to be the title. But that's okay. That's part of the process of life and of creating art. And even the great artists spent a lot of time in their fields, being at home with the lights off. Like, that's just part of it. So don't guilt yourself, and recognize that it's okay to do that. So, what are some slightly less depressing ways to get in touch with your creativity, maybe once you've started to feel like you're ready to come out of that cocoon phase and you're ready to maybe not be as much of a potato? How can you cultivate more creativity? How can you create habits that will invite more inspiration and ideas into your life? Well, I have 4 other tips that I mostly wrote to myself before I was like, I can share this with the internet. This is valuable enough information. And a lot of these tips I actually got from The Artist's Way, which is a fantastic book by Julia Cameron. And if you haven't read this book yet, I don't know what you're doing. You gotta go read this book. Read it right now. It's so good. It changed how I view creativity. It changed how I view myself as an artist. It actually gave me the confidence to finally call myself an artist and identify as an artist. And if you don't already self-identify as an artist, go read this book and maybe you also will, because it's a great place to be at, and I love this book so much. I can't sing its praises high enough. So please check it out. That's tip 0.1. Not officially the first tip, but the tip before the tip, how many times can I say tip, is go read this book. So, my first little tidbit of advice is to shut the fuck up and listen to yourself. Just get quiet. I'm probably not allowed to swear in YouTube videos, but I've been gone for a while, so I'm just gonna do it anyways. Listen to your inner world. There's so much noise and chaos inside of our brains all of the time, that it's really important to just make space to shh and listen to yourself. I know it's really hard at first if you're not good at sitting still and you're not good at being quiet, and you constantly need to stay busy and stay active because you spend so much of your time trying to drown out the chitter chatter in your noggin. But sometimes you just gotta stop and listen to it. Like, it's there to tell you stuff for a reason. And sometimes it has some really inspirational and important things to say. So if you can carve out a little bit of time in your day to just sit and breathe. I would also encourage you to meditate, but I know that word scares a lot of people, and I can already feel you behind the screen going, I can't meditate, I'm too anxious. I was that person too. So start small. Do 10 breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. I know, like, this feels like some woo-woo shit, and if you're not a woo-woo person, it might be a lot for you, but trust, it's a really important part of the creative process, if you can lean into it, is just being quiet and listening to your inner world. Julia Cameron refers to creativity as like a river that's always there, and you're not going to find your creativity and you're not going to look for it. You're just trying to drop into it, like it's a current. So you're just trying to like be quiet enough in your life to just drop into that creative well that's always there and always available to you, if you're able to be quiet and still enough to listen to it. So definitely listening is a big one, and just being quiet. The next kind of way I cultivate more creativity and find ways to connect with my creative side and my inner artist is to write. This is also a really big proponent of the Artist's Way. Julia Cameron calls it the morning pages, and the Artist's Way is a 12-week program. You do like a little chapter for every week for 12 weeks. And the one thing that you do every single day throughout the whole program is morning pages. And morning pages are supposed to be 3 pages of uninterrupted stream of consciousness writing. And I know like that sounds like a lot already. I can feel you going, I can't write 3 pages. That's okay. Challenge yourself to just write a little bit. When I was doing the Artist's Way and I was actually doing my morning pages, I had never had as many creative ideas in my life. Like, it is annoying as crap, and it is intimidating to sit down and just do 3 pages, not to mention finding the time to do 3 pages. But it actually does really open some stuff up and allow you to connect deeper with your inner creative side. But if that's too much and you just want to kind of like start smaller, even like once a week, dedicating a little bit of journaling time to just reflect and just write out what you're feeling, what you're frustrated with, what you wish you had more of in your life, so you can kind of like start to attract that and even just recognize what you do want more of. And then you'd be surprised at how many little ideas are waiting inside of you to be heard, and they're just sitting there and they're just waiting for you to acknowledge them and put them down onto a piece of paper. You can do morning pages either with writing, like a old school pen and paper. I find I'm actually way more articulate and better at doing stream of consciousness writing on a laptop because I love typing. I'm way faster at typing, and I find my hand gets tired after like 3 pages is a lot, so my hand gets real tired. So if I'm typing, I find that I have more stamina to actually like release out these thoughts that are inside my head. So it doesn't matter how you do it. You can even do it on your notes in your phone app. Your phone app? What? Am I 80? In your phone, in your notes app. If that's better for you, if you find that you can connect better with just typing in like that kind of way. But yeah, listening is huge. So breathing, meditating, and then carrying that forward into a writing practice. Those 2 are huge. Whenever I am actually on my game and meditating and writing, I find I'm way more creative, way more inspired, and also way more accountable to myself because I have it written down. So I have these ideas that I want to create, and I can look back at them and see them and be reminded of them constantly, so that I'm way more likely to actually create those things that have asked to be created. After those things, the next big one is probably the biggest but that you can have when it comes to being a creative and making art, and that is finding the damn time. How do we find the time when we have full-time jobs? We have little ones that depend on us. We have significant others. We have mental illnesses that are making us really freaking tired and make us want to be little potatoes, and demand all of our energy. How do we find the time when we're neurospicy and we don't have the spoons, or so many other things? The finding the time is the thing that kind of stops all creatives in our tracks and makes us go, I can't do this. I don't have the time. And I find, because I also don't have the damn time, I'm neurospicy, I run a business, I tired all of the time. My spoons are very low most of the time. So the trick that I found that works for my brain, and yours might be different, so you got to find what works best for you. What works best for me is scheduling it into my calendar like a doctor's appointment. And that doesn't sound fun or sexy or like a spur of the moment creative artist state. However, as adults, I think we know that if we leave things up to chance and inspiration and spur of the moment. It's just not gonna happen. So you kind of have to just schedule in that time and put it aside and be like, I'm doing this on Wednesday at 2 p.m. And even if you don't feel inspired Wednesday at 2 p.m., just doing something that excites you and encourages you to play and be inspired is going to start to make you feel inspired. It's like when you go to the gym. Going to the gym is the hardest part, you know, you have to like get up, put clothes on, and like go there. But once you're there, it feels great. And afterwards, you're like, okay, that sucks, but I'm glad I did it, because you get all those endorphins. Scheduling in creative time is kind of the same. Showing up is always going to be the hardest part. Finding the time is always going to be the hardest part. But once you do it, and once you commit to it, I think you'll be surprised at what you can unearth about yourself and what ideas are going to come to you. This will come as no surprise, but this is also a part of the artist way. Julia Cameron calls it the artist state. And I've done a couple videos on the artist state because I love this concept. I think it's really integral to my process as an artist and also just my connection to being a happy, joyful person is finding time to do stuff that I like to do. So an artist state is not about doing stuff that you're supposed to do or you feel like you have to do or something that's on your to-do list. An artist state is about doing something that you want to do just because you want to do it. Something that you feel curious about, that you feel drawn to, that you've always wanted to do. And it doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be expensive. It doesn't need to take a long time. It could be anything. An artist day could be just going for a walk and taking pictures of flowers. I have an app on my phone called Huji. It's like an instant film camera app. It reminds me of being a kid with a little disposable camera and running around and just taking pictures of things. I love it. It's one of my favorite artist dates. It's just to go around with my Huji app and just take pictures of flowers or trees or animals. It's really fun. And then I have this like photo journal of things that I thought just looked cool. It just reminds me of being a kid again and just not having any parameters to creating, just like having a little dinky camera and just being like, I like that. It really unlocks this like creative part of me and it just feels fun and frivolous and I love it. Another artist date example could be just going down to the beach and collecting rocks that you like. Anything that kind of calls to you and it looks pretty, you could just pick it up. You don't need to keep it if you don't want to, or just kind of like hold on to it for a little bit. You could take it home and start collecting rocks. You could be one of those people. But I think it's also a good reminder that there's always an abundance of things to connect to and ways to be inspired. Another good artist date is just to make tea, sit down, doodle, get some crayons, get some pencil, crayons, and just doodle like a little kid again. Making these times for creative dates just reminds you that you can just play and be a silly little artist however you want to. It doesn't need to be good and it doesn't need to make you money and it doesn't need to be impressive. The only goal is to just play and create, and that's good enough. And I think once we start doing this more and more, it kind of unlocks these creative blocks and gets them out of our way. Another way that I stay creative and inspired as a photographer who does like what I like to call commission work. Basically, all of my shoots are commission. You're paying me to make art with you, and it's going to be in my style, but it's my client's art first and foremost. So it always feels like a little bit of a commission. So I don't always have like that full creative control that sometimes as artists we need to have and we need to kind of play with and experience, is having like the ability to just be creative and have weird concepts in our heads that we can create and make art with. So a really important thing that I have learned in my career is I need to schedule in time with collaborators and other artists to do more creative shoots. So it's all well and good to fill your calendar with those shoots that are going to make you money, because we need money to fuel our lives and buy groceries. But we also need to make art and create stuff that fuels our hearts and our souls. And yes, my client work fuels my heart and my soul, but sometimes we need a little bit more in terms of creativity as artists. And so it's okay to do shoots that don't make you money if you're having fun and it's a collaboration with multiple people with like a creative end goal in mind. So I used to try to do one a month. I've been falling off the bandwagon a little bit, which I think is also why I've come back to this place of how do I get creative again and how do I feel like an inspired creative being, realizing I'm not doing these things that I know make me feel creative because I've allowed myself to just get too busy. So schedule in some time to just do creative shoots. If you're not a photographer and you're an artist, just schedule time to paint whatever you want to paint that's not for a client. It's just for you. And the only reason you're doing it is just because you want to and you want to play and you want to make something. So don't forget to schedule in your own creativity on top of all the other ways that you're creative for other people. We're almost done, my loves. Last thing I wanted to say to you, be bored. Allow yourself to get bored. We live in a technological age where everything exists at our fingertips. Constant stream of stimulation and content to consume is just readily available on our phones for us to surrender to and lose ourselves to. And while yes, sometimes it's okay, as I was saying, to disassociate and just lose yourself in the consumables of the internet, it's really, really integral to being creative and being a happy person as well. To be bored, to not be consuming something all of the time, to sit in silence and to twiddle your thumbs and to just notice the way that the wind is ruffling the leaves of the trees outside, or the way a bird is just riding a gust of wind. It's really important to find that time to just be still. This ties back into that listening portion, but also just allowing yourself to be bored. And I think we're scared of that because a lot of us, especially the younger generation, millennials, Gen Z, etc., we grew up never being bored. We had iPads, we had video games, we had Neopets, dating myself. We had all of these things that we could do to just keep our brains occupied, and it has had a direct impact on our creative output as people and as a society and a culture. Because we're not listening to that creative well, and we're not allowing ourselves to just find ideas within ourselves instead of just watching and consuming what other people are creating. And then we end up just recycling the same ideas, and that's part of art, is just imitating and copying one another until it's different enough that you can get away with it. But I think it's also really, really important to just be really bored to find your own voice and to listen to your own wants and desires and to connect with your creativity and your inner artist. So don't be afraid of being bored. Turn your phone off once a week. I swear to God, it'll be helpful. I, like many of us, am very addicted to social media. I love it. I spend way too much time on it, but I also recognize that it is incredibly detrimental to my creativity and to my mental health. And I'm working in like a bedtime for my phone. So at 8 p.m. I get a notification that's like, time's off, like all my apps shut down, and I have to like hit a little button that's like continue using. So it makes me think about how much usage I have on my phone. I also have a time limit on all my apps. TikTok is like 15-minute timer. Once I've been on it for 15 minutes, it is like, hey, stop. Same with Instagram, because it's so easy to scroll for hours without recognizing that we're doing it. And then once a week, I just turn off my phone, whole thing, throw it under a pillow, and I come back to it the next day or before bed or whatever. And then just giving myself like that peace of mind for that whole day just gives me so much freedom, and I need to do it for more time. I would love to be able to turn my phone off for like a whole week. That would be the dream, and just disconnect from the constant chatter and babble of the internet to be able to just listen to the inner world and just like be quiet and calm and be bored. Being bored is good for you. I swear. Feels weird at first because you're like, I feel like I should be doing something. But we are human beings, not human doings. So it's okay to just be and not do. Yeah. All right. That is my cheesy little spiel for y'all about how to connect with your creativity and your inner artist. And also, these are just great tips for connecting deeper with yourself. So if you're not a creative and you don't make art and you just want to have a better connection with yourself, these are also great tips for just that in general. I hope you enjoyed this video. Haven't done a YouTube in so long, I forget what I'm supposed to say. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, follow for more content. Come find me on Patreon if you want to learn more about self-portraits and photography business tips and all that jazz. I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.